And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. It's your good friend Jimbo here with our weekly MMA show. I'm kicking around some names instead of saying it's our weekly MMA show. That just sounds silly. But kicking around some names. Maybe I'll put a poll out there on Twitter within the next week or so and go from there. But speaking of Twitter, head over there. Follow the show at ST Sports Podcast. Follow myself at Jimbo ST Sports. As well as Shoulders is STS O'Brien. Head over to Facebook and YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. Do all that stuff for us so we can make this a bigger and better show. And be able to get more information out there for you guys. Also, I retweet a lot about the Belly Up Cancer Awareness shirt. It's made by DSG Tree. I believe that's how you say it. If you can't figure it out, excuse me, just head over to bellyupsports.com. I'm pretty sure they have a link on there somewhere. It goes to a great cause, obviously, and whatever we sell, because I'm part of the Belly Up podcast network, which is obviously Belly Up Sports. Half of what we make is going to be donated, so we want to try to sell as many of those shirts so the money goes to a good cause. I mean, it's a win-win. You know, make yourself feel good that you're doing something good for people, as well as we're donating some good money to cancer survivors and stuff like that. So head over. They got hoodies, they got shirts, different styles. You know, I've seen a couple of them. It's actually pretty cool looking. So to kick off the show, I didn't really watch any Bellator shows this past week, even though I think they had like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday shows, which was kind of weird. As my AC turns on, I don't know why. But there was a little drama with the Michael Page fight between I forget who he fought. It was basically, from what I was reading, it was a no-name guy, but there was a little bit of rivalry there between those two. And referee Dan Margulata took a point away from Page, basically for unsportsmanlike conduct and taunting and stuff like that, which I was quite surprised, because I mean, we see the Diaz brothers do it. Conor has done it. Even back in the day, Randy Couture, when he fought Tito Ortiz, spanking Tino's ass. So I was surprised to see that he got a point deducted. But then afterwards, the story I was reading, Margulata went over to apologize to Page, because I guess right before he took the point away, he called Michael Page a piece of shit. And I'll give Margulata credit for heading over there and be the bigger man, and to apologize and to say, hey, you know, I messed up. I should never have said that type of deal. And what does Michael Page do? He basically told him to F off. From what I've seen of Page, he's a very talented fighter. And yeah, you know, he wants showboat, you know, that's his thing or whatever, but you know, you have a guy coming over to apologize because he's in the wrong, and you want to disrespect him like that. Now, the commission came out and said that neither of them are going to get fined or punished for it. Even the other fighter was warned as well, because I guess he flipped Page off during the fight. But to me, it just kind of shows the type of person Paige is. And I could deal with the showboating, but at some point, you gotta fight, you know? And Margulata even said that to him. He's like, you're a hell of a fighter. You just beat the shit out of this guy. You don't need to do all that showboating. You already have a name for yourself. Why do you gotta keep doing that? And to me, by him acting like that during the fights and stuff, it's kind of not making the sport, respectable. People are gonna start thinking, oh, it's a WWE, it's a joke. It's not real type deal. Now, so I mean, hopefully Paige maybe pulls back the taunting a little bit, because the fight before this, he got knocked out by I think it was Lima. Paige went for a takedown, and Lima just uppercut him and just knocked him completely out. So I just hope that Paige isn't one of these fighters that once he fights a top 5 guy, he's not that good, or isn't up to that competition yet. And unfortunately for Bellator, we do see that a lot. I know for a while a lot of people were hoping that Paige came to UFC, but we saw what happened with Ben Askren. Askren came over from 1, but before he went to 1, he was in negotiations with UFC about coming, and just couldn't hammer out a deal, because let's be honest, UFC does have the top talent to face. And when Askren came over to fight Robbie Lawler, yes, he won, but it was close. I mean, he got dropped on his head, almost got finished there, and then obviously with the knockout of the year against Masvidal, it's not looking like he's the top welterweight guy to fight. And I'm afraid that may happen with Paige. We saw with Hector Lombard. He came from Bellator. He was supposed to be the next big thing. Didn't have that great of a career with UFC. Now he's back in Bellator. I believe that's where he's at. So hopefully Paige can tame back the taunting a little bit and focus more on his skill. Now, it was a little bit of a slower news week, if you want to call it that. But one news story, since we're talking about taunting, that did break this past week was Usman is finally going to fight Colby Covington. After weeks and weeks and weeks of negotiations, Covington going to the news and saying, Dana White's UFC's negotiation tactics are bullying tactics. Just sounded like it was just going to fall through. And there was even a rumor that UFC talked to Leon Edwards saying if they're going to give Colby one more chance to negotiate here, and if it falls through, they're going to go with Edwards. Well, fortunately, they both did agree, and it's going to be the welterweight title fight is going to be in December at UFC 245. It's going to be Usman's first title defense since defeating Woodley back in I think it was like March. Yeah, back in March. I mean, he just dominated Woodley. Woodley just seemed like he was like shell-shocked in a way. I mean, Usman is a good guy, a good fighter, and I expected a good fight, but it was total domination. Now, originally, when UFC started the negotiations for this fight, They were hoping to get this one for the Madison Square Garden in a couple weeks, but like I said, it fell through, and now they're doing it in December, which the Madison Square Garden fight is for the BMF title between Masvidal and Diaz. I'll touch on the whole belt controversy in a little bit. But Usman has won his last 14 fights. He's 15-1. Covington, pretty much kind of the same. He's on a pretty long win streak himself. Who do I think is going to win? Honestly, I think Usman's going to win. Watching Covington against Robbie Lawler in his last fight, Lawler just seemed like he was looking for that one-punch knockout. Really didn't have any answers to anything that Covington was doing. Not taking anything away from Covington. I mean, it seemed like his game plan was basically just to grapple with them, which would be smart. You know, keep Lawler's one weapon away, and you know he grinded it out a win there. But with Usman, I think he has power as well. Could grapple. There was a couple situations during Woodley's fight that he showed he could grapple as well. And Woodley is a good wrestler, and he couldn't do anything against Usman. So I definitely do think Usman is going to win this fight. I'm hoping so, just because Covington, he's too cocky for me. It seems like ever since Conor McGregor came onto the scene with this nose up in the air type attitude, trash talk. It was funny in the beginning, but now you're going on 6-7 years of the same trash talk type stuff. It's old. Covington with the "Let's make America great again" persona type deal, bringing the first family to all the events, which, hey, if that's your thing, cool, but it's getting a little too much now. I think I just want someone to finally humble him, whether it's Masvidal or Stipe Miocic, which I don't know if you guys saw about that a couple weeks ago. Supposedly at Miocic Cormier fight, Covington was saying some degrading things to Stiopchik's wife, and I mean, if he did say it, he's got balls. Because I mean, you got a heavyweight going that wants to come talk to you, and you're a welterweight. You're giving up about 30-40 pounds on the guy. So on top of the Usman Covington fight for that pay-per-view, we also have Max Holloway defending his belt against Volkanovski, and Amanda Nunes versus JDR. I mean, Nunes, she's just going to run through her. It's the same. I think it's the same situation that we were in when Ronda first came into the UFC, that there's just no competition for Nunes. There's like Nunes and then a big drop off in talent, and everybody else is bunched together. I mean, she could go down as the greatest women's champion ever to fight in UFC. And yes, Cyborg was in there, but she didn't dominate. She didn't defend the belt like like Nunes is doing. Also, I saw this little interview with Al Quinta talking about the rankings of UFC. And the reason why he was getting interviewed is there's UFC 243 is this weekend. And he's fighting Dan Hooker, which Al Quinta, according to UFC rankings, is number 5, whereas Dan Hooker's number 15. And he was asked, why did you take that with someone that's ranked number 15? And he basically responded with, he goes, I Didn't know what he was ranked. I don't believe in the rankings. They're more of a popularity contest than actually rankings, which is true. I mean, you look at, I'm not sure if he's still on the pound for pound, but even though the welterweight rankings, Conor McGregor is still ranked number 3. I don't know how he could be ranked number 3, and this is coming from a Conor fan. Well, used to be a Conor fan, because I haven't liked his antics lately. But how could he be number 3 when his last fight was a loss? His fight before that with Diaz was a close decision. And he really hasn't fought that much in the past 4 years. I mean, the past 4 years, I think 2, maybe 3 fights he had. He defended the welterweight belt once. I just don't understand how he could be number 3 when Al Quinta went 5 rounds with the champion, Nurmagomedov. So if anything, I think Al Quinta should be ranked above Conor. I mean, if you just look at, his fights, his record, plus how he did in the fights. And unfortunately, with these rankings, someone on Redid it found out that it's only 14 people that do the UFC rankings, and only 9 people are actually involved in mixed martial arts. So yeah, it is a popularity contest, and with this deal with ESPN, I wish there was a way that ESPN could kind of be like college football. Have a panel of experts come together, and here is the official rankings. Because with the UFC rankings, there's no clear-cut way to say this is how you get a title shot. Unless you're Conor McGregor, throwing dollies through buses and just making the wrong name for yourself, it seems like, because that's what sells. That's the only thing that seems like works with these rankings, is if you could sell pay-per-views, no matter how you do it, whether it's your talent or whether you're a bad boy, you'll get ranked higher. Now, with Al Quinta and Dan Hooker, Al Quinta said the reason why he took this fight was because Dan Hooker called him out, didn't know his ranking, and figured this would be a fun fight to do. I kind of like Al Quinta in a way. I mean, he does trash talk a little bit, but the way he does it, it's kind of funny and interesting in a way too. But I just wish that ESPN, and I know the fighting commissions can't come up with rankings, but someone has to come together and say, okay, let's make an official rankings, and number 1 will always fight number 2. Number 1 will be your champion, will always fight number 2. You lose, or if you're inactive, put rules in there. If you're inactive for more than a year, you get removed from the rankings, or you drop out of top 10 and you gotta work your way back up. And I bet you a lot of these fighters will start either fighting more or not be so much of a babies and say, oh, I'm not main event, I'm not fighting. AKA Conor McGregor. Just hoping that somehow things change so that the rankings are more clear for the fans to understand what their favorite fighter has to do or who he has to fight to get a shot at the title. Now, I alluded to it a little bit earlier about Masvidal and Diaz. So, a lot of people are out there not liking the fact that UFC is making a BMF belt and having The Rock put it around the waist of the winner. I'm not for the belt, actually making the belt. I think it's pretty cool sales pitch, if you want to call it that, to label this as a BMF title fight, because let's be honest. I mean, Masvidal and Diaz, these two together should be able to put a pretty good build up to this fight. They both respect each other, but they both can trash talk. And the press conference they had a couple weeks ago, I love the fact that Masvidal walked out with the Scarface tux or suit on. Now, they didn't really talk that much. I'm okay with that because we have roughly a month of lead up of trash talking, and I think this is gonna be a good fight. I mean, some people think Masvidal is gonna lay Diaz out. Some people think Diaz is gonna submit Masvidal. This could be a bloody war. Masvidal, I think, has the power advantage. Obviously, Diaz has the ground game advantage. It's just a matter of whose strength is going to outdo the other person's strength. So when the fight gets closer, I'll give my pick. I mean, as of my final pick, as of right now, and I don't know if I'm saying this because I'm more of a Masvidal fan. I think Masvidal is going to win it, but gets down to the ground, he's got to figure out a way to get up off the ground because Diaz is pretty nasty on the ground. So, like I said, UFC 243 is this weekend. So before we go, I'm going to give my picks. It's actually not that bad of a card. We have kicking off the main event. We have Justin Tafa versus Jorgen De Castro in the heavyweight division. A welterweight fight between Luke Jumbo versus Diego Lima. And then another heavyweight fight. We have Tuivasa versus Sergey Spivak. Tuivasa is, I think, the cousin of the Alabama quarterback. And Notre Dame lineman, I think it was. Forget if it's offense or defensive lineman. But then for the co-main event, we have Ala Quinta versus Dan Hooker. And the main event, we have Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. Whittaker is the champion. Israel is the interim champion. And it seems like we're slowly getting rid of these interim titles, which I'm finally glad, because just they're handed out like they're candy anymore. So, kicking it off, my first pick, I'm going to go with Justin Tafa. To be honest, never heard of either of these guys. I probably should. I mean, if they're on a pay-per-view. And it's a heavyweight fight, so could be a knockout. Hopefully there's no, and this goes for the whole card, hopefully there's no eye poke situations. 2 weeks ago we had Todd Duffy. Last weekend, 3 weeks ago was Todd Duffy. 2 weeks ago was Rodriguez and Stevenson situation. So then after that heavyweight bout, we have Luke Jumoa versus Diego Lima. I'm going to go with Diego Lima. I'm going to go third round knockout. This one possibly could be a good fight. Could be a close fight if it comes down to a decision. Then at heavyweight, I have Tuivasa versus Spivak. I'm going to go with Tuivasa here. I've seen a couple of his fights. The one that he did lose seemed like he gassed, and might have been the main reason why he lost it here. But I think he makes a bounce back here with a knockout, because he does have some powerful punches. Then in the co-main event, we have Ala Quinta versus Dan Hooker. Now, I know I just talked a little bit about the rankings. Ala Quinta being number 5, Dan Hooker being number 15. This is like a win-win for Hooker if he could just hang in there. I don't think he could beat Alaquinta. But if he could go all 3 rounds and show up and make this a dogfight, you got to think he has to move up in the rankings, even if he does lose. I mean, he's 15th ranked going up against a top 5 guy. Now, on the other hand, with LaQuinta, I don't really think he gains anything by a win here. Again, it's a 15 ranked guy. It's not like Conor McGregor moved up to the class above him and got put at 15 and you're fighting him. But I think Alaquinta wins this. I'm kind of hoping for a decision. I mean, this could be a good fight. I mean, Dan Hooker is an up-and-comer, and this could be a good stepping stone fight, win or lose, depending on how he loses. I mean, if he gets knocked down in the first round, yeah, it doesn't look good. But if he makes this a dogfight and takes it to decision, that could help him in more ways than one. Then in the main event, like I said, Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. This is Whittaker's first defense, I believe. Injuries, illnesses, just never could get a title defense, and here we are. I always talk about ring rust. Israel fought Anderson Silva a few months ago. Now, Anderson isn't the same fighter that he used to be, but he's still a dangerous fighter. And Israel just ran over him. And I think this is going to happen again. I think he's going to beat Robert Whittaker. I think we're going to see the ring rust. I think the only way Whittaker wins is by knockout. If Israel could make this go into the 4th and 5th rounds, I think he could pull this out. I think we're going to see Whittaker gas out because he just hasn't fought because of injuries and things like that. So I believe we're going to hear a new champion being called. So that's going to be it for today. Before I go, head over to Twitter, follow the show at ST Sports Podcast, follow myself at Jimbo ST Sports, follow Shoulders at STS O'Brien, head over to Facebook and YouTube, like, share, subscribe, and like I said, head over to bellyupsports.com. We have a cancer shirt, cancer survivor shirt, on sale over there. Whatever we sell, 50% of whatever we sell will be donated, and it's for a good cause. So like I said, head over, purchase 1 or 2 or 3. You know, they got hoodies, they got all different kinds of shirts for cancer awareness. So till next week, this is your good friend Jimbo signing out.